Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio has been out on Netflix for a couple of weeks now. New adaptation of a beloved children's book. This one is done completely in stop motion animation, which I believe makes it the longest stop motion animation film ever made at 1 hour 57 minutes. Apparently, there's been like 4 different Pinocchio movies in the last year or two as a result of the story entering public domain. I have previously seen only one of those recent movies, the Disney Plus version with Tom Hanks released earlier this year, which turned out to be a weak, ugly, derivative and lazy live-action version of the old Disney animated film. Back then I thought it was pretty awful, but now having seen this version from Guillermo del Toro, I can in all confidence say that the Disney Plus movie was utter dogshit in comparison, because this one is splendid. First of all, it looks absolutely gorgeous. The stop motion animation is done beautifully, and it manages to have its own sort of unique visual style. It doesn't really resemble other stop motion animated films. Each of the characters is meticulously designed for specific effect. Even Pinocchio himself looks weirder and stranger than any other version. My personal favorite were the 2 magical spirits, one of which replaces the blue fairy that gives life to Pinocchio. I found these designs to be just fantastic with the eyes on the wings, because they just look otherworldly and magical and have a tinge of something sort of dangerous behind them, something not quite right, not quite meant for human eye. Secondly, the story manages to be a fairly faithful adaptation of the classic tale, but at the same time does actually attempt something new with it, something new and fresh, instead of just repeating the old stuff that was done in the previous movies. First of all, it expands on the first act in quite significant ways, showing us all the backstory of Geppetto and his original son, and then showing how he makes Pinocchio not out of love but out of drunken rage and unprocessed grief, and how that impacts the beginning of the story. So right away you get the sense that this is going to be a much darker film than the other Pinocchio versions, and it certainly is. It also moves the time of the story to 1930s Italy, during the rise of fascism and Benito Mussolini. And this is a fascinating change, because at the beginning it just seems like an interesting sort of background to the main plot. But then it actually plays a rather pivotal role in the way that the whole Donkey Island sequence is replaced by a youth military camp run by fascists. And so it sort of flips and in a way counters the original message of be obedient, listen to your elders, to showing, well, this is what happens when you do listen and not question the people above you. This is what happens when you let yourself be led unquestioningly. And I honestly found that flip of the main theme to be quite fascinating indeed. It's also an interesting thing, because it's not the first time that Guillermo del Toro has played with showing the dangers of fascism. I mean, Pan's Labyrinth is a perfect example where he did exactly the same thing. He told a mostly magical story, but put it on the canvas of a country engulfed by fascism. Other than that, I think there's also some pretty good voice work here. I wasn't entirely sold by on Ewan McGregor as Jiminy Cricket initially, but he grew on me eventually. However, there's some excellent supporting performances here. Tilda Swinton as the spirits, Christoph Waltz as Count Volpe, and Ron Perlman as Podesta come to mind especially. I think this film in general is an excellent counterpoint to this sort of popular opinion of remakes are unnecessary, because in general I believe that they are, unless this is the key point, like Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, you have an idea how to make this new version different and say something new while staying true to the original story in spirit. I think the film accomplishes that, and it accomplishes everything it sets out to do. It's a great mixture of this sort of scary magical moments, humor and levity, a sense of adventure, and a cautionary tale for children. Very good stuff.